Jake, thank you so much for joining us on Social Impact Power Chats.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Emily.
Absolutely. So I feel like I have been a follower of your social impact journey, but in case there are people listening who are new to you, can you just share a little bit about how you got into impact and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say I kind of lucked into getting into social impact. My journey is a bit careening around. I ended up joining the military after college and spent 4 years kind of overseas with the Marine Corps. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I thought I was just going to go get my MBA and go to Goldman Sachs or some soul sucking job. And I know a lot of people at Goldman, so I can say that. But what happened was I accidentally started a nonprofit while I was waiting for my grad school applications to come back. The organization was called Team Rubicon, and really, I say by random accident, it was just in response to the Haiti earthquake. That just snowballed, and I ended up running that nonprofit for 11 years. It scaled to, by the time I left, 150,000 volunteers, and I think we'd raised about $300 million in philanthropy to do that work. And I fell in love with this idea of having impact in the communities. And I think a lot of my perspective on the world had been shifted through that experience. And at a certain juncture in that journey, I came to the conclusion I wanted to be an entrepreneur again. And so I stepped down as CEO, still chairman of the board there, but decided to start a new company. And so I started Groundswell almost 4 years ago. And the goal was to take everything that I'd learned running a nonprofit and try to disrupt corporate philanthropy. And so I'm lucky in that my entire professional career has been in social impact. It wasn't what I expected, but I wouldn't trade a single day of it.
Amazing. So, disruption means you have a perspective on something that, is broken. Walk us through your top 1, 2, 3 data points of what you were looking to address.
Yeah, well, a lot of my experience was on that nonprofit side of the table. Like my perspective, my experience was certainly informed by that. And so the organization I ran, Team Rubicon, was a disaster response organization. And so time was everything. And so one of the first things that really began frustrating me with the solutions in corporate philanthropy was things like distribution timelines. Having to wait 30, 60, 90 days for a donation or for that donation match was really consequential to our ability to execute that mission. And frankly, it just seemed kind of inexplicable to me that we couldn't improve those timelines. It felt like a very solvable problem. And then I think one of the other things, we paid a lot of money at Team Rubicon for software to identify when somebody that was donating to us might work for a company that had a donation match program. And so, we were paying for software to try to, beg people to submit for their match. And I just, I thought there's got to be a better way. And so we wanted to really close that estimated gap in donations that go unmatched, which, double the donation estimates is $5 to $7 billion a year in eligible donations go unmatched. And we thought, hey, that's 1% of all philanthropy in the United States. Like that's material to a company, to an organization's ability to have impact. And so, we really wanted to close those gaps, and we've been really laser focused on that.
Amazing. So, knowing that part of the goal of this show is to have somebody listening to say, wow, like either I'm a nonprofit and I want to unlock corporate giving or matching opportunities, or, I am a CSR professional and I want to think about how to motivate people to utilize this. Like, what have been some things that you've seen work? What would be, recommendations that you would have if you were sitting across from a professional like that?
Boy, I guess it really depends.
Sign up for Groundswell, obviously. Like that's number one. So
okay, so they're on Groundswell. People often ask me, what is the single biggest factor in the participation rate within a giving program? And I never hesitate and say, it's not how much money you're offering to match. It's not it's not even the platform you're using, even though we think we've got the best in class platform. It's how much does your CEO care? Mm. And if your CEO cares, if it's a priority for him or her, if they are using it as an incentive, if they're using it as even a KPI for their other senior leaders or business unit leaders, if they're reporting out the outcomes that they're having at company all hands and leading from the front on it, you're going to have amazing participation. You are, because people reflect they reflect the attitudes and behaviors and actions that they see in their leadership. And so if you have leaders that are all in on this, you're going to have a leg up in it. If you have if you're a company or if you have a CEO that this is really just a box checking exercise to run or have a matching program, it's going to be, single digit participation, and there's no platform, not even Groundswell, that's going to overcome that hurdle for you. So that's usually what I tell people. Like, you got to get that boss's buy-in. If you can do that, you're going to move the needle.
100%. And I think, you and I are obviously aligned on this. The box checking is not impact work, right?
Right.
It's something that's ultimately, going to do less in the world than we all need this work to do. What are some examples or, just some thought starters for people who, obviously having an amazing CEO is mission critical. And I totally hear you. Not everybody who's, in positions of passion is going to be able to change that person. So I think that's like number one, the best piece of advice. Have a passionate CEO, 100%. Have you seen anything else? You mentioned KPIs. I've seen people put this on performance reviews, right? Like to say, like, did over 95% of your team participate? Like that's a very easy thing to do. Have you seen anything else that's maybe not like low hanging fruit, but a bit more achievable for, again, somebody sitting in a CSR role or somebody sitting kind of on the impact team?
Yeah, I think one of a powerful tactic that companies can take is really, putting a spotlight on their champions internally. I think for a lot of people, philanthropy can be intimidating. I think for a lot of people, they love this idea of giving back or making a difference in the community, but they may be overwhelmed by the problems that they see in their community or the choices that they have in what they can support. And so I think, taking some of that pressure off for folks who are a little intimidated about starting by elevating the voices and stories of people who maybe are a little bit further along on that journey. So what's that look like? I mean, it might be giving an opportunity for someone to share an impact story for them. Like, what do you support and why do you support it? Why is this the most important thing for you, the most important problem for you to solve? Why is the organization that you're supporting best in class at solving it or best positioned to solve it? Like, and what's then the theory of change? How does it make the world around us better? I mean, I think that those types of moments, whether it's via a lunch and learn, whether it's via a dedicated Slack channel, just really lowers that barrier for someone who is new to philanthropy to be exposed to it in a way that is involving their peers and really brings them along on that journey without this fear of like, am I going to screw this up? Because I mean, it's people's money. Like, people want to know that if they're putting their hard-earned cash to work, that it is making a difference. And so I think that pure validation is really valuable.
100%. One thing that I know, and maybe this is more of wearing kind of your Team Rubicon hat, that I've seen is really just the duplication. If it's, a matching program kind of sitting on its own, or a volunteer program that's completely disaggregated from the company's mission or where you are geographically, like, it all feels just a little bit less relevant when you coalesce these things and bring them together into an actual perspective. And you have a point of view as an organization to say, we care, and we care with our matching, we care with our volunteerism, we care with how we think about in-kind donation. It really can change the way that that moves from being something that everybody hopes works to something that actually is working. So I don't know if you have a Team Rubicon related story or another thing that you've seen since you've been in the Groundswell chair of seeing a company that can really put forward a package and does that make a difference, having it feel like it's really part of a larger mission?
Yeah, I might answer your question a different way. One of the things that I observed at Team Rubicon was a lot of companies think that they're really good at giving away money, and not that many of them actually are. We had the luxury, the pleasure, the privilege of working with some amazing grant making organizations out there. We also received a lot of really big checks from companies that thought they were really smart about giving away the money, and like, we were happy to take it, but it was obvious that they really didn't have the expertise that was necessary to make the decisions that they were making relative to the size of the checks that they were cutting. And so I think, one, that leads to a couple of problems. First, when you have, I think, unsophisticated, uninformed grant makers, not only does that mean that those resources are often not going to best-in-class solutions and therefore not creating the impact that we all need to see created in our community, but those very same funders are often the ones that are putting a long tail of work, administrative work, on those nonprofits. And that's just unfortunate because these nonprofits already lack the resources to, do their job effectively, let alone report back to a grantor. The second thing is, I think a lot of companies overestimate the value that their employees place on that strategic big check cutting grant making, right? And so if part of your motivation for your social impact programs is to motivate and inspire your people, you're probably over-indexing on how much your employees actually care about the $250,000 check that you sent to Big Brothers Big Sisters. Amazing organization, send them the check. They do great work. Just using them as an example. And so if truly you are looking to attract and retain values-aligned talent, our argument, of course, is give that money to your people to give away, right? You have a diverse workforce who care about diverse things and have diverse perspectives on how best to approach those diverse problems. And so by empowering them to make those decisions, one, I think you do achieve some wisdom in the masses.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people would attack my argument and say, well, all of these employees are unsophisticated funders themselves. And I would argue, yes, you can make that argument, but they're also closer to the problems that they're funding, right? And so if you have an employee who grew up hungry or who grew up in a broken home, they're going to know the local resources that are approaching that issue most effectively. And, with some exceptions, of course. And so not only are you going to get your dollars closer to real solutions in your community, but you're also going to motivate and inspire your employees more effectively. That would be a point of view that I have.
And just to add to your argument, I would say, as somebody who helped to run, a fairly sizable corporate giving platform, one of the things that we would do would be to look at our company matching programs and our company granting programs to say, okay, we really want to tackle something that's super place-based, very local. And there's 100 people who have put their chips on exactly the kinds of solutions that we're looking to identify. And we would get really fresh, cool ideas simply by looking at our giving tallies for matching that we wouldn't have been able to source even if we had quadrupled the team size that we had, right? Because we're not as proximate. So I think it's super, super smart. And you're right on. I can't believe we're already, toward the end of our conversation, but these power chats go fast. I'm going to leave you with our last question, which is your crystal ball, looking into the future. Obviously, you are a major voice and impact. Where are you looking? Where are you placing your bets? Where do you see this work flowing?
Well, certainly, a big bet that Groundswell is making is that, donor-advised funds, employer-sponsored donor-advised funds will be how employees give in the future. The 401k was introduced in 1980. It's a standard part of your package now. The HSA was introduced in 2003. If you don't put out a competitive job offer without an HSA, we think 5 to 10 years from now, the same will be true of donor-advised funds, and we're certainly betting our future on that.
Very cool. Well, I will say, we're a small user, but Ethos Giving is a very happy user of Groundswell. We think your platform is phenomenal, really, really user friendly, and does help us to flex our generosity muscle with our team. And I just appreciate that you've built something so meaningful for the community. So thank you so much, Jake.
Of course. Well, thank you. Thank you for being a user. Thanks for bringing me on.